Hello guys and welcome back to the channel. Recently I've been seeing posts on my feed on Twitter, mainly ones about Sonic Heroes, but one post that got my attention was about how they talked about the glowing orb things that both Tails and Knuckles had at the end of Sonic Heroes. Those were kinda underwhelming. I'm sure a lot of people feel this way. I myself do as well, and I personally think that super forms in general are limited pretty badly, or they aren't really creative anymore like they used to be. So I kind of wanted to shed light onto why I think that is and how I think that they could be improved in different ways. Let's get into it. We have to start from the top with this, with Sonic 2 being the first game to debut a super form. At the time, it was just seen as a reward for collecting all the Chaos Emeralds, since the last game kind of fumbled that. And it looks pretty cool, so it was obvious that they wanted to reference Dragon Ball with this as well. Look at the concept art that they made. I know that this is pretty common knowledge to fans and casuals in general, but over time super forms will be used more for the plot in future games, starting with the next game, Sonic 3. I think what's interesting is that they also established that Tails and Knuckles have super forms too. We're going to come back to this later though, so for now, just know that this is where the games were starting to build the groundwork up, so there wasn't really a lot of restrictions, and they were allowed to do whatever they want as far as improving gameplay, even though story-wise it might not have made sense later on. Like I mentioned before though, the super forms kept on being used for the plots of games from Adventure 2 up until about after Unleashed, since they started to backpedal on it a bit. I also think it's interesting that most of the time super forms are used in the modern games, it's relegated to either Sonic, Shadow or Silver, though this is going to be important later on. Colors did include Super Sonic, but not really as a final boss type of thing, and then Generations came along and included it both in the boss fight and as a playable character. It's after this that we really start to see Super Sonic not be used in future games though, stretching from Lost Will to Forces. I know it's not that much time when you put it into context, but the story that Forces tried to tell needed a lot of scope, so not including super forms as a final boss kind of felt like a missed opportunity in a way. No, instead Sega thought it was a really good idea to have Super Sonic be a DLC instead, which they completely regretted not long after. Frontiers is the most recent game where super forms have more significance now than they've had in the last decade. Every boss at the end of every island includes him to use as a boss fight, and the DLC makes this even better with Super Sonic 2 being a completely different thing. So the question is, if super forms are becoming relevant now, why were they barely used during the 2010s and why were they so limited? There's two ways that we can look at this, mainly from both an in-game perspective and an IRL perspective. In-game, it's shown that secondary characters like Tails or even Knuckles haven't really interacted with the Chaos Emeralds the same way that Sonic has. It explains why they haven't been really given the spotlight for a long time, up until about Frontiers. Another point that I want to point out is the mandate that Sega made, which explains that only male hedgehogs can go super. To put it simply, this is a whole load of BS. If that was the case, then why do Tails and Knuckles still have super forms in the classic games? They even made sure to keep it that way in Sonic Origins, so what was the point behind that? From an IRL perspective, I don't think Sega are completely ready to commit to giving side characters that much appreciation in the story yet. I know they did with Shadow, and even then, he didn't really get to use his super form. Though to be honest with you, it was in Generations and it made sense why. But I think they're just testing the waters for now. They know that Sonic is their go-to for this kind of stuff, so I'm guessing that they don't really want to risk anything by having him hogging up the spotlight from them a little. I feel like the main things that could be improved with super forms in general would be both on a visual and a narrative level. Looks wise, I don't really like how every other super form is just the character glowing. If it weren't for the birds that Tails has with him in his super form, I don't think you'd be able to tell him apart from his regular form. And Knuckles barely looks any different in his too. I've seen some redesigns of these forms where they changed more than just the color of these characters. I'll probably put them up on the screen for you to see. I really like the ones where they treat Tails more like an actual kitsune and give him more tails in general. I also feel like the mandate that Sega made needs to be trashed. At the end of the day, it makes no sense and it just restricts a lot of it narrative-wise. If any of you have seen Sonic and Tails R, you'll know that they made it so that anyone can have a super form as long as they meet certain conditions. I really like this idea, and it adds into how the lore can work into the emeralds, and it gives more lore into super forms in general and what makes them work. I also think it's a missed opportunity to have most of the characters jump a boss in their super forms, but that's just me. Hopefully within the next few games we can start to see some kind of changes with this stuff. Personally, I'm hoping for the scene that does get changed when Heroes does eventually get remade. I want to see more lore drops into how super forms work in general. Thank you all for watching. Please make sure to like and subscribe for future content, and I'll see you all in the next video. Peace.